Okay.
Hey guys, I'm Tiffany and you found me on the Wise Skies podcast. Today I have very special guest Lavanga, and she is recently certified through Vedic Astrology, and she has joined the Wise Skies team this fall and winter to be able to offer Vedic sessions for you. And so that you have a clue what Vedic is about, I wanted to have her on the podcast so we could just have a conversation. You guys, most of you watching Wise Guys are used to Western astrology, which is we take an evolutionary approach to it where the observer affects the experiment. And one thing that Lavanga taught me that is different in Vedic and her approach than ours is that they really study first the first 7 planets in a birth chart. And so that is one of the subtle differences that you're going to hear about today. I love what you teach, Lavanga, that you're still the same person, it's just a different perspective and a different layer. And so welcome to the show. And I'm so glad you're here. And tell me a little bit about what are the Vedas? What is Vedic? How do you explain what Veda is? Like you do.
Yeah. Well, Veda just very simply just means knowledge. Mm-hmm. So in India, there are so many writings. They've been studying all different kinds of subjects, from health, which is Ayurveda, to Tantra, to the yoga, the asana, the philosophy behind all that, which kind of ties everything together. And astrology is just one of the sciences. Mm-hmm. The science slash there's an art and a science to it, and so it's just one of the things that just adds a richness to your life that helps you understand why you're here, how do you navigate things, and how to live your best life, and how to understand yourself better.
And so Vedic astrology, you guys, for me, one thing that I just love about it is that it gives you these very specific dates and timelines. And when you look back at them, you can very clearly see something significant in your life changed, And so I love the date portion. And I know that in looking at your chart, it's a lot different. And so that's something that we wanted to give you guys today, is just a little tour of a Vedic chart. And so let me make sure you can share, and I would love for you to give us a little tour of what are the different sections of a chart when you're looking at a Vedic chart.
Okay, so we're going to pull up your chart.
Okay.
Where is here? So are we still sharing? Or
yeah.
Okay. So the first thing you'll notice is that, of course, that it is square instead of round. And when we look at it, the signs are always in the same place. So you're always going to see, like, Scorpio will be here, Aries will be here. What will change, though, is depending on your ascendant, your rising sign, is that becomes your first house. And then we count, and then we said, this is the first house, second, third, fourth, like that. So it's obviously this is like who we are. This is like the planet Earth and the stars around it. So it's like a map of the sky. Okay. And so it's really nice to just see kind of the same planets in the same place and see how they interact with one another. So like Tiffany was saying, you may notice that if you are familiar with your Western chart, that some of the signs are going to be different for the different planets. And so, but that doesn't mean you're a different person. It's just a different way of interpreting it, but your planets are still going to relate to each other in a similar way. So what else you're going to see on a Vedic chart will be what Tiffany was talking about, the time. So this is called the Mahadashas. So this is showing how, one of the things we really look at in the Vedic chart is karma, how karma ripens. We come into this world with things to learn. And when they happen depends on this. This is the map of the time. And where this starts is it has to do with your moon sign, and it's where you, because in the Vedic chart, the moon is what we're carrying in from our past lives.
Okay, see, that's something that's new to me. The moon is part of the past life carrier. Interesting.
Because
Okay.
because that's our subtle body, our emotions, which we carry into this life. So it's not just it's how we experience the world. We experience it through our emotions, through our mind, right? So this will show it runs in the same order. Okay, and these are the Mahadasha. Maha means great, so they all run the same way. And then even within these, there'll be smaller chunks.
Yeah.
So you have the main one. So we'll just look at your Jupiter runs from 1982 to 1988. But even within that, and this chart doesn't show it, but there'll be the mini, like smaller chunks of time. So you'll have like Jupiter, Saturn, Jupiter, Mercury. And so we can really, and there's even a third layer.
Yeah.
Really,
you can really,
if you're getting a first chart done, we'll go over the Mahadasha and we'll go over the secondary dasha, generally, those first two. And you can figure things out at least within a few months. If you're looking at something, if you're like when something's going to happen, that's going to bring it down to, maybe about a 6-month period, which is really nice to know, especially when something, if you're going through a hard time, you're like, oh, when is this going to end?
Yeah.
Right. And it's so helpful to know, like, is this, this difficult thing I'm having with my job, say, like, oh, well, that's because this is happening, but in 3 months, this shift's going to take place and it should get better. And it's been very true. I've had that personal experience. So it's a relief to know when things are going to happen. So the other thing you'll see is these harmonic charts. And this is just there's a lot of layers that will tell specific things. And so it's just another way of taking apart different areas of your life. So just for instance, I'm just looking at the D10, what's called. They're called harmonic charts. So D10 is what we look at to really look at your career.
Oh, okay.
Your career, yeah. And it's based on the area, when we're looking at the basic chart, there is the career part of it. And then we can just take it down, look at it even more detailed. So it's just another way of looking at it. And then the other thing, which is my favorite part of Vedic astrology, is called the Nakshatras. These are called moon mansions. And what they are is they're a layer that goes on kind of on top of the planet in the sign.
Okay.
And what they do is they add, these have to do with like spiritual lessons, very deep spiritual lessons.
Okay.
And so we're already learning about, okay, we'll just use your ascendant as an example. So your Mars is in Scorpio. So that and in the first house. So what is that about? Okay. Well, if we want to go a little deeper and kind of get like just a real deeper understanding, what does that mean for you? Then we're going to look at Mars down here in Scorpio, but it is in Jesta. And so every sign has 3 nakshatras associated with it.
Okay.
And it just adds another layer of meaning. Okay. One of the things that it's meaning and why you're seeing like, what does this have to do, is every nakshatra is ruled by a planet as well. So that just gives you further information into the meaning of it for you. So it has a Mercury influence on your Mars, and that's going to be different than if you had a different kind of influence.
Okay.
So
very much so, right? Because it's kind of like I've got vanilla ice cream and I'm going to put chocolate sauce on top and then I'm going to put red sprinkles on it, as opposed to, the same kind of ice cream and different toppings. It makes it taste different. It gives you a different experience. And a Mercury flavored Mars is, would you agree that it's maybe a healthy use of Mars energy in terms of the themes around Mercury, right? The writing, the communication, the teaching, the very sharing of information type of a thing, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
And the other cool thing with the nakshatras will also come into play is within the dashas,
Okay.
because just it would make sense just for you. So say you have you're in your, well, I'll just use your current time. So you're in your Mercury Mahadasha now. So
Mm-hmm.
what that means is it means your Mercury is really lit up.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very active. This is when the things having to do with Mercury are going to happen for you. Like you're thinking, well, if I've had this, like the planets are potential.
Mm-hmm.
It's always within us. But we look back, I was like, why didn't we start whatever
Mm-hmm.
until I was 40, say,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And that's because that dasha didn't start until that time. And that's just when it was supposed to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So for you, so we'll just say Mercury here. So that is lit up right now because you're in your Mercury Mahadasha. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, but the other thing we look at as to what else is going on and for that is any nakshatra ruled by Mercury is also going to be activated during that Mahadasha.
Okay.
That makes sense?
Yes.
So for
I'm
you,
with you.
so you're not only is this 12th house Mercury and everything else lit up in everything that means, your Mars is also going to be lit up. So that relationship between these planets and this planet, this house, we can just unpack that. And that's just one thing of what's going on.
And that's one thing that we could focus on in our session, right?
Exactly. And in the sessions that I'm especially doing for Wise Guys in November and December is to discuss specific spiritual practices that not only are good for you like any time based on your ascendant and things like that, but also specifically what is going to support you in this particular time in your life. And that can balance if it's going to be kind of a difficult time, and you might want to get if a planet is going to be going through a difficult time due to this configuration, we can call on that planet, the energy of that planet, and there's specific mantras, there's specific gems, there's specific colors, there's actual practices. Like, could it be hatha yoga? Could it be like bhakti yoga where you're, using mantra and things like that? Is it doing service? Is it going more within? These different parts of our lives require different activities.
Yes.
So we're going to be talking about things that are in general good for you. And then we can look at what's good for you right now.
During this time. Yeah.
And not only from your natal chart and the dashas, but also in relationship to the transit of what's going on, especially of the more outer planets like Jupiter and Saturn, because they stay in a sign for a year, 2.5 years. So it could be a time when you really need to lean into a certain kind of practice while you may be undergoing, well, say Saturn, which is generally can be difficult depending on where it is, what area of your life Saturn is going over. It might be difficult because that's just the nature of Saturn. So if Saturn is going over a part of your life where, you want to put more attention and alleviate some of the pressure that Saturn can give you in that area of your life, chanting these mantras, doing these practices will help uplift you and give you the positive aspects of Saturn, because no planet is bad, no planet is good, right?
Right. And it's just like offering a way to balance and remediate some of the influences that are going on for you. And there's a lot of creativity in that, in the remediation. Okay, so we looked at the birth chart, we looked at the harmonics, we looked at the timing. What is the white chart in the center?
These are just the different days of the week. So the Vara is the day of the week. So you were born on a Friday, right?
Yes, I was. And
exactly. So Vara, So some of these sounds, they are odd because they're just not English.
Okay.
So Vara just means the day of the week.
Okay.
And Venus is ruled by, Friday is ruled by Venus. That's why it was Friday. Tithi, so the nakshatra is Swati. So that is where the moon was when you were born.
Okay.
Yeah. And the Tithi, so you were born on the new moon as well. So Tithi is, how do I say this without, so a Tithi is a relationship to where the sun and the moon are to one another. And that has a relationship because the sun is considered our father and the moon is our mother. And the relationship between that these are kind of like part of the natal chart. It sort of colors your entire life.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, well, cool. Let's stop the screen share for now. And let's just talk a little bit more about your class coming up. You're going to teach on November 16th at noon Central. And so that gives you a little bit of a tour of a chart, but what are we going to learn in class? What are some of the things you're going to teach us?
Okay, so I'm going to go into a little bit more about the nakshatras and why they're so exciting, because it really is, that is the most Vedic of the Vedic astrology. And we're going to talk about why that is, a little bit about the history of it. We're going to talk a little bit about how Vedic and Western are related. That's very fascinating, and it's because they are related. They come from the same, they're coming from the same place, but over time they've kind of evolved into their own system. And they've both been around for a long time, and they both evolved. Because you mentioned the evolution of the astrology. So because they've both been around so long, they've evolved into their own systems. They're just two different systems. But what it's really fascinating is how, and if you're familiar with your Vedic, with your Western chart, it's very interesting to see how the same concepts are coming from different parts of your chart.
Yeah, it's just another layer of information. One thing that we love to do at Wise Skies is this idea of self-realization and looking through self-reflective lenses. And so there's, we can look at Western, we can look at Vedic, we can look at human design or the Akashic records or any of the secondary progressions or all of the different timing tools and strategies to look at the self. So I'm excited that you're going to be talking about the most Vedic of the Vedas with the nakshatras. Can you give us just a flavor of like one of them so that we can get an idea, like what's your favorite moon mansion, and just give us a little description, a little taste.
Okay, my favorite moon mansion. I'll go with my moon's moon mansion.
Okay.
My natal moon is in Cancer.
Okay.
Cancer in both systems, by the way, but Cancer, mine is in what's called Purnavasu.
Okay.
So one of the beautiful things about nakshatras is they bridge two of the signs. So it's really fascinating to see how it's not an abrupt change. When a planet moves into a different sign, there's an evolution there.
Okay.
And so sometimes they share a little bit of the sign previous or the sign after, depending on where it is. Because there's always one that's fully in a sign, and then there's one that's shared by another sign.
Makes sense.
So Purnavasu is the meaning of that means return of the light.
Okay.
Because there's a whole, just like there's an evolutionary story in the zodiac, from Aries to Pisces, there's a story. A story that goes. So there's a story with the nakshatras too, and it means return of the light. And someone that has their moon in Purnavasu is very optimistic, is very motherly, because there's also a deity associated with it. So that also gives you some of the story. There's the stories that the nakshatras come from are from the oldest Vedas, from called the Rig Veda. And so these are ancient. You can feel the stories, and they're very primordial, just far out stories, but it really speaks to your soul. And so the story of Purnavasu is, she's the mother. Aditya was the mother who brought forth all the progeny of the world. And when I read about her story, it just hits me, and it's full of optimism and hope, and I just really relate to it. And I'm like, oh, that explains me so much.
Yeah. Okay, great. All right. And how many moon mansions are there?
There are 27.
Okay.
And I will explain how they relate to, I have a little chart that will explain how they relate to one another. I also have, I will show a chart that if you don't want to completely kind of switch over to, you're not ready to, you want to know more about Vedic, but you're coming from where you are and knowing how much you know about Western.
Yeah.
That sort of will help you understand it by comparing. It's a chart of, in the Vedic where the moon mansions fall to the degrees that they fall in the Western.
Okay.
Does that make sense? So if you're whatever, you have your Aries sun at this degree in Western, but then that's going to be in Pisces. And you're like, I'm not quite ready to understand that, but you can learn from the nakshatras without totally switching over. If you
without having to do
that later on, it's still applicable. You're still we're just adding more. We're just going deeper and going more, getting broader. It's better to get broader than more narrow. We're expanding, right?
Well, yeah, absolutely. I love that you're teaching this. I appreciate the time that you've taken to deepen it in your practice. I know that you've been doing cards and stars and yoga for 20, 30 years. And so I know that you have a lot of wisdom from your personal experience and your personal practice. And I think that we're all really excited to learn more about this layer of information that we can look at our charts. In the Western world, there are lots of places people can go to get their chart for free online. And I'm just thinking that people are going to want to do that too. Do you know, is there a site that you send people to find a Vedic chart, or is that not such a thing?
Yes, there's like my teacher Sam has a place where you can get in fact, that chart that I showed you of your chart, it was created from that website. So.
Okay, so what is his site? Is it Sam?
It's not Sam what is it? It is
samgeppy.com.
If you put in Sam Geppy, it'll come up. It's not Sam Geppy.com.
The Vedic Astrology Center.net.
Yes, that's it.
Okay, beautiful. So guys, I'll put that in the link in the interview below. And thank you, Lavanga, for a little tour of the birth chart or of our charts in Vedic, and also how the differences are kind of not so different. Like they just give you more information. And I'm so excited to learn more from you. I hope you guys can find it. It's free. It's complimentary for our members. And so this is November 16th at noon. And if you'd like to drop in, you're welcome to do that as a non-member. And we appreciate your patience. Both of us have had some serious noise issues today. And so like whether it's the guy cutting tile or the other piping issues going on, we're working through it. It's a new moon in Scorpio eclipse kind of a day. So thanks guys for being here on Wise Skies. You can find more information at wiseskiescollective.com. And thank you, Lavanga, for sharing some of your time with us today. We really appreciate it.
New moon in Swati over here.
Okay. Perfect. Oh. Okay.